As we wrap up this course, I'd like to share with you a couple of ideas I think will be valuable to you as you continue in your journey of mastering VPNs. Let's begin. Let's say this line represents a growth pattern. So down here we have a beginner, here we have an expert, and as my high school geometry teacher, Mrs. Martin, told me, a line goes on forever. So the expert realizes that there's more that they could learn, and as long as there's motivation and desire, we can continue to learn and enhance our skills and knowledge. So let's say that we're right here. One of the biggest secrets is to constantly and continuously move in the right direction. And it really doesn't matter where we start on this line or where we are, as long as we're moving consistently in the right direction, making progress, we'll be able to continually move in the direction of our goals or in the direction of mastery of the topic that we're after. And one of the biggest secrets of moving in that direction is to practice. For example, in every video, I've invited you and encouraged you to practice virtually everything that we've seen together and done together in the videos. Because I know that'll be a huge catalyst in helping you really internalize it and remember that information. And the more knowledge and skills you have, we can take that knowledge and apply it directly to a production network and be more valuable to ourselves and our employers. Another tip that's been really helpful for me is to share what you know with others. For example, if we just learned about Ike version 2 and you have a coworker who's interested or curious about cryptography, take the time to share it with them. A couple of things are going to happen. Number one, as we share our knowledge with other people, it's going to help identify in our own mind what we still need to work on. It's also going to help us to confirm what we know. So it's good for us, and if we're teaching another person and helping that person understand the technology, it's good for them too. It's a win-win situation. And we will never run out of topics or technology to learn about. And the phrase that I think about is that as the tide rises, all boats rise. And we want to make sure that tide is really, really high at any environment that we're in. So that for the people who meet with us and know us, we want to make sure that they are better off as a result of knowing us. By being a positive influence, being willing to share what we know, and help them if they have questions or concerns about some technology or something that we have the ability to assist them with. For example, let's say a coworker comes up to us and says, okay, I've got this user, Bob. He's connected to the internet, and I've got my ASA at the head end. But the problem is, whenever Bob builds a VPN tunnel, he can get to the corporate resources, but he can no longer get to CNN.com. Why is that happening? And so we could explain to him some basics. Say, well, if his tunnel is going over to the ASA, it's very likely by default, it's going to be tunneling everything. So the security policy is saying, tunnel everything. And if we're tunneling everything to the ASA and he's trying to go to CNN.com, maybe we don't have the correct network address translation and hairpin turn permissions to allow a redirect out to the real CNN.com, and that's what's causing the problem. Or maybe the ASA is set up for that, but the website that the customer is trying to get to is being restricted through URL filtering of some type. And then as far as the solutions to that problem, we could say, well, we could change or modify the group policy on the ASA that Bob is participating in, and we could implement split tunneling. So that just network X, for example, let's say network X was 10.1.0.0, and through a split tunneling policy applied for the group, we could indicate that if traffic matches 10.1.0, go ahead and send it through the tunnel, and if it's not, then Bob could go out free and clear up to CNN.com. Now, the implementation of doing something like that could be done a couple ways. We could do it in the GUI, the graphical user interface, go to the group policy and set up split tunneling, or we could do it at the command line interface. And one of the biggest things about implementing this is that we'd want to make sure, first of all, that we have it tested in a test environment to verify that it's going to work correctly the way we want it to. And secondly, we absolutely, in a secure environment, want to make sure we go through proper change control, which identifies what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, how long it should take, what the rollback process is, and have the appropriate management signatures signing off that it's going to be done, and then having that properly communicated to the people who need to know. Now, for us to implement the split tunneling, if we have the change control done and all the planning done, the very first thing we might want to do is verify what access control list that we have in place. So we could do a show access list, that might be huge, or if we plan on using access list number 1, we could do a show access list number 1 just to verify it whether or not it currently exists. It is really embarrassing and quite a bummer if we're working on an access control list that we think we're creating, but unfortunately we're adding to the existing access list. Because that'll certainly throw our split tunneling policy for a loop if we tell the network that we just want to split tunnel based on an access list, and that access list has a whole bunch of additional entries in it. So here we have access list number 1. It's a standard access list pointing to the 10.1.0 subnet. And if that is the specific network that we want to do split tunneling for, All we need to do is modify the attributes of a group policy and tell that group policy that we want to go ahead and do split tunneling. So if we want to modify the group policy called group policy underscore con-profile-test1, which is a group policy that I used for an AnyConnect VPN that I had set up, at the tail end I'd specify the keyword attributes, and that puts me into the attributes configuration mode for that group policy. If we want to do split tunneling, I'd simply tell that group policy split-tunnel-policy tunnel specified, which means I'm going to identify an access control list, and I want you to only match on permit statements in that access control list and only do tunneling for those specific networks. Next, we'd have to indicate that access list with the command split-tunnel-network-list space value and then the number or name of that access control list. In our case, it's access list number 1. And now, based on this group policy, we have a split tunneling policy enabled on the ASA. One of the tools I've used to help me grow over the years is something called troubleshooting. Now, when I think of troubleshooting, I think of it in a very positive light because it gives us the opportunity to identify what is working, what isn't working, and then improve upon those situations. And troubleshooting, of course, applies to everything, not just information systems. If a light doesn't turn on, or if there's a leaking faucet, or if you're in a financial situation that's not agreeable to you, it's all about troubleshooting. Identifying what are the steps we could take, what would correct it, and then acting on that. And many times when we're troubleshooting in a network scenario, we didn't build the network that we're troubleshooting. Somebody else built it, or it was built by several generations of people. So when possible, we need to be focused in our troubleshooting to identify, okay, what doesn't work, and ask the questions such as, when did it last work? And then what happened between point A, where it used to work, and point B, where we are now? Was there a configuration change? Was there a power outage? And of course, take everybody's input, but we're also going to go back and take a look at log files and accounting records to help validate what did or didn't change in those time frames. And I have a mnemonic I'd like to share with you regarding troubleshooting. It's called CCIE. And the first C is for basic connectivity, especially as it applies to security. If we don't have an IP path, for example, there's no routes, no connectivity between point A and B, it's very unlikely that we're going to be able to build an IPsec overlay on top of that. So we absolutely want to verify basic connectivity first. And then once we verify basic connectivity, I would take a very strong look at the configurations. And specifically, I'd look for anything that recently changed, especially if something was working and it's not now. It's very likely some kind of a change. For example, the software got updated, the firmware got updated. We added this access control list entry. We modified this service policy. We updated the IPS signature database and so forth. Look for any changes that happened from a configuration perspective as the next step. It's also possible that if something was working and now it's not, it's possible it's never been configured perfectly or correctly initially. And maybe there was a software update and now the misconfig is actually affecting the performance of the system. So without going too crazy and wanting to change everything, you may want to just make sure that the configuration they do have is valid. The I is for isolate, the divide and conquer approach. If Bob right here is trying to build a VPN connection over to the ASA, we want to try to isolate the problem and say, okay, is it Bob's machine, or is it the ASA, or is it the connectivity in between them? And that's also referred to as divide and conquer. So if there's another user like Lois and it's working perfectly for her but not for Bob, and both users are participating as part of the same group, they're using the same connection profile, it's very likely there's something going on with Bob's computer or his configuration specifically. So as far as the isolation, we would say our fault domain is probably somewhere over here. And so we'd want to check Bob's connectivity to the ASA. That's this step. The ASA configurations are probably solid. In the configurations, we'd want to verify that Bob and Lois actually exist either on the local database or on the AAA server regarding the authentication and authorization pieces. If Bob is using the web VPN, aka the clientless, maybe we have them clear their cache on their browser or perhaps try a different browser. But if there are settings that are in his browser, we may want to go into his browser or have Bob go into his browser and start hitting the button to reset the parameters in his browser to the default. Especially if that's what Bob has been working with or playing with lately, because that may be the configuration changes that are now causing Bob to no longer be able to connect as a web VPN client. And the E in this CCIE mnemonic is for enjoy. Enjoy it. Have a lot of fun. I mean, if there's 15 things that could be wrong with the VPN connection, or with your site-to-site tunnel, or with the Get VPN, or the DM VPN, or the Flex VPN, we can enjoy both the process and the progress as we isolate and identify, okay, this piece does work, that piece does work, because eventually we are going to find that piece that doesn't work, correct the issue, and then restore or build for the first time the functionality that we're after. And there's a lot of enjoyment to be had in the process of solving the problem as well as enjoying the final solution. Many years ago, I was called in on a project as a consultant where the administrator, the security admin, had gone. I'm not sure all the details of why he was no longer there, but their site-to-site tunnel was no longer working. And so they had some of their people that were looking at the configs and tweaking. And so when I got there, I wasn't sure if it was just one problem or several problems from the additional changes that had been made. And this tunnel was using Ike version 1. And as I was going through the configs on these devices, they did have privileged access at the CLI, and they were using pre-shared keys for authentication. Now the challenge for me was I didn't know what those pre-shared keys were. Of course, it'd be important to verify what the keys are on both sides, and we could do a debug as well and take a look and see whether or not we're successfully completing Ike Phase 1. But just from a basic configuration perspective, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if I could actually see what those pre-shared keys are on the ASA? Because if you do a show run, it puts asterisks instead of the pre-shared keys so you can't actually see what they are. Well, I want to share with you what I wish I'd known those many years ago regarding how we can see those keys on the ASA. Let me share that with you right now. So on the ASA, if we do a show run, I'm just going to do a pipe and say, please include lines that have the word pre-shared in it. That'll give us a little bit less to sort through. But you'll notice all the pre-shared keys, both for Ike version 1 and Ike version 2, they are all asterisked out. They are not displayed on the screen for us to see. So it's pretty tough to actually see what those pre-shared keys are. However, if we use the command more system:running-config, it will then show us the pre-shared keys, and it won't hide them from our view. So there we have the pre-shared key of Cisco 123, Cisco 123, Cisco 123. And I remember many years ago that I did not know about that option of doing the more. And so what I did, just to err on the side of caution for their site-to-site tunnel, I put in new pre-shared keys, and I did it on both sides. And that way I knew what those pre-shared keys were, and I knew that they matched. But the more system:running-config would have been a fabulous way just to see what those pre-shared keys are. Another handy feature that's built into the ASA is the command called VPN setup. And if we do a question mark, we can ask for assistance as far as how to do the VPN setup for these types of VPNs, including site-to-site. So if we select one of those, and let's, for example, pick site-to-site, and then another question mark, and type in steps, it'll give us the overall process for implementing a site-to-site tunnel. So I'm currently on version 9.x of the ASA, and it's not showing me how to do the Ike v2 stuff. This is all the Ike v1 stuff. But still, it's pretty cool. If we hit the spacebar a couple times, told out to go to the end, it says, well, you want to have active working interfaces. You want to set up your Ike Phase 1 policy, your IPsec transform set, the access control list. You'll want to configure the tunnel group and the IPsec attributes with the pre-shared key, and then you'll want to create a crypto map. And because this is an example, of course, our peer wouldn't really be 10.10.4.108. Our peer would be whatever the IP address is of our peer. And that peer's IP address would be used as our tunnel group name as well. I also wanted to chat with you for a moment about SIMOS, which correlates to exam 300-209 as part of the new CCNP security from Cisco. Now, if you're wondering, am I ready for that certification exam 300-209? And the answer to that depends on a few things. Number one, have you gone through all the videos in this course, including the videos I assigned from the CCNP Security VPN 2.0 course? And as you'll recall, it was most of the videos in that CCNP security course. So if you've gone through all the videos in this current course, 300-209, and you've gone through those assigned videos in the CCNP Security VPN 2.0 course, and you've practiced hands-on virtually everything we've done together to help reinforce those concepts, and then regarding readiness for the 300-209, I would say yes. If you've practiced all these techniques and security concepts, I would say you're ready. However, if you're saying, hey Keith, I didn't quite practice this or I didn't practice that, I would strongly recommend you go back and practice those hands-on to reinforce that knowledge and help to build your own personal skills on that technology. And there's one additional video I would also recommend you check out, and that is the ASA packet capture video from the CCNP Security SENS course. Now, if you've already been through SENS and you've already gone through the ASA packet capture video, that's great. As you do the packet captures and are able to, right out of ASDM, pop open a packet capture and look at it with Wireshark, that'll assist you by giving you that immediate reinforcement and immediate information regarding the packets that are crossing across the interfaces of the ASA. I also wanted to take a moment in this video and tell you thank you. I appreciate you joining me in all of these videos in this course, and I honestly have had a fantastic time making these videos with the intent of sharing them directly with you. So to sum it up, I am very grateful to you for your investment of time as you watch, learn, and conquer VPNs in a Cisco environment. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.